Hello everyone and welcome to Autocrat. This is episode 104, an Interregnum and a divine acclamation. Romulus is dead!
Yes, he is.
Or possibly not. It's
Yeah.
confusing.
Yeah,
But we now need to pick up the pieces and carry on without him.
we do indeed.
With Romulus gone, the Senate began fighting over who would succeed as the new king.
Of course they did.
Factionalism was rife, but since Rome was so young, there were no individual people who had risen enough to be considered factions in their own right.
Alright.
Those Romans who had started out as Sabines wanted a Sabine-descended king.
Yeah, I mean, seems obvious.
Yeah, after all, since Tatius had died, no Sabines had ruled. And that was over 30 years ago in like 747 BCE.
Yeah, that's been a while.
If they did not have political power, they might never get a Sabine king again.
Right.
However, the so-called true Romans hated this idea. Both sides wanted a king, but nobody could agree on exactly who should rule. Rome had hostile forces on all sides and it did not have a leader.
Not a great position to be in, especially after you've had such an aggressive leader punch everyone and make them really mad.
Yeah. But still, the deadlock continued. So, the Senate decided to take control. There were 200 senators.
Oh yeah.
They were divided into groups of 10. The first 10 of these were given supreme power. However, the 10 of them did not rule concurrently. Instead, it was rotated every 5 days. That seems like such a stupid idea.
Alright.
After the 50 days had elapsed, power was handed to a different group of 10 senators. And this carried on for a whole year.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't dealt with this story yet at the time of recording, but there is a story where Oedipus's sons decide to rotate control of the city of Thebes between them, and one of them just doesn't give power back, as far as I know, so I'm surprised this worked.
It is really a period between kings.
Yeah.
An interregnum, if you will.
Interregnum. I wonder if that word will catch on.
Maybe. The people were not happy with this, though. They argued that now, instead of only one tyrant, they had like 100.
Yeah.
Now, the Senate knew that any form of government other than a kingdom was unlikely to remain in place for long. So,
I mean, besides, they do elect the king, so they do have a vested interest in keeping on being the power behind the throne.
yes, I bet they do. So they decided to act to end this deadlock. The people were grumbling, so were given a choice as to whether they wanted a yearly elected ruler or else return to kingship.
One guy in the audience went, "Wait a minute, electing officials every year, that sounds like a thing we could do in 200 and, I don't know, a specific number of years."
Well, the decision was that the monarchy would stay.
Yeah.
They turned the decision over to the people, with the caveat that the election needed to be ratified by the Senate.
Yeah, obviously, you can't let the rabble just pick the king.
This ratification of decisions carries on from here on in, although becoming only ceremonial after a certain time.
Okay,
So
fine.
the person in charge during all this time was titled an interrex, basically a person in charge between kings.
I'm kind of sad the term interrex hasn't survived the way interregnum has.
No,
It sounds dramatic.
It's okay. It's okay. The interrex announced the people could choose.
Sure.
At this time, there was a reputable man by the name of Numa Pompilius. Numa's father was called Pomponius, or else Pompilius Pompon.
You like that one better, don't you? Are you imagining a cheerleader now?
No, actually, I was imagining Pompeii, but you know,
Okay.
I shouldn't laugh about that.
Too soon.
Yes, it hasn't been long enough.
Yeah.
Numa was the youngest of 4 sons of Pomponius,
Or Pompilius Pompon, which is definitely what you're choosing.
or Pompom, as in apple.
Yes, Numa Apple.
He was born on the 21st of April 753 BCE, the day Rome was founded.
Ooh, coincidence? I think so.
So when he was born, the Sabines were still the Sabines rather than the Romans. He was a temperate and virtuous man and hated luxury.
He sounds so... He's practically glowing, isn't he? He's got light radiating out of him.
Probably. He was so renowned that Titus Tatius had given him his daughter Tatia as a wife.
Yeah.
Not that this had stroked his ego enough to make him live in Rome when the Cockings were living there.
Okay.
Tatia also liked her husband's private nature rather than seeking office. A good couple, a bit like us.
Yeah, surprisingly wholesome.
After they had been married for 13 years, unlike us, Tatya died and Numa retired to the country. He may have married again or had another love life, but we will get to that down the line.
Ooh.
He was living in the town of Curis, which was a Sabine town.
I think that's the one where the title Quirites and thus the god Quirinus comes from as well. I can't properly remember.
Maybe. He was also well versed in the affairs of gods and men. He had apparently been taught by Pythagoras himself, but Livy points out it can't be true, as Pythagoras didn't live in southern Italy until a century later in the rule of a certain Servius Tullius.
Okay.
Instead, Numa's good quality were from himself alone.
See what I mean? There's light coming out of his eyes.
Numa was duly offered by someone as a candidate for king. The Senate thought that a Sabine ruler would straighten the Sabine faction's hand. Still, no rivals were put forward. So, unanimity!
Whoa!
Numa is elected without opposition. He was called to Rome. When he was acclaimed by the people, yay! Envoys were sent to ask him to accept in his town of Curis.
He probably opened a letter and that exact cheer came out of it, and he was like, that's really weird. Or it just said the word yay written on it.
These envoys were Proculus and a Numan, Velesus, who was the Sabine envoy.
Proculus, we met him spreading that whole Romulus story last episode.
We did.
Connections.
Numa, with his father and a relative called Marcius, in the home when he was called upon, was difficult to convince to accept.
Yeah. But he does end up travelling to Rome.
Nice. So, once he's in Rome, Numa entered the city very joyfully.
Yeah,
and
everyone loves him.
Yeah, everyone's so happy, yay, great time.
They all bought t-shirts with Numa's face on it.
Of course they did.
Sorry, tunics. T-shirts aren't a thing yet.
The interest at the time, a man called Spurius Vestius announced a vote and Numa was unanimously elected.
I mean, yeah,
He's been already unanimously elected.
Yeah, but if you remember, there's two parts to this.
I do. The people got the regalia out, but Numa wanted the gods to be asked their opinion, just as Romulus founded Rome after the omens had been studied.
Everyone probably went, come on, get on with it. We're handing you it on a silver plate.
Well, an augur took Numa to a citadel. Numa sat down on the south-facing stone, because that's very important that it's south-facing.
Well, yeah.
The augur sat to his left, holding his augur staff in his right hand. The augur looked out over the city, prayed, and glanced sweepingly from east to west.
Right, okay.
Like this.
They can't see you doing that.
From east to west.
Maybe that will have picked up.
Also, I was doing it the wrong way around. Anyway. He put his right hand upon the head of Numa and prayed to Jupiter that if it was ordained that Numa Pompilius would become king, a sign should be given.
Yeah.
He even specified what the signs were that should be given, although Levi does not tell us.
Oh.
Oh, here's a sign.
I don't think that was it. I don't think it was a pencil being dropped.
That wasn't a pencil, that's a paper crayon. But we do get to know the signs.
Yes, because someone other than Livy tells us things.
Good. Now that the augur had declared the right hand or south part of the sky to be a good section for omens.
Okay, we have a good bit of sky and a bad bit.
Well, birds travelled through that section of the sky.
Wow.
The signs were duly sent and Numa was the king. He travelled down from the hill. He took power in the third year of the 16th Olympiad.
Now, the first Olympiad began in 776 BCE, so this would be in 714, right? But, I mean, I disagree with this.
Of course you do.
There might be a bit of a fuzzy timeline, but we know the Interregnum lasted a year. So, based on that, we can approximate that the Interregnum ended on the 5th of July 715 BCE, based on Romulus's death. It might extend a bit into 714, depending on when exactly it ends, but still, I'm going to say Numa's reign begins in 715.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, Rome has its second, or maybe its third if you count Titus Tatius, king.
Nice.
And next time we'll get into his rule a little bit.
Very cool.
So, thank you all for listening, and have a great Olympiad, everyone.
Have a great time. Don't drink too much.
Okay. Don't let any birds go through the bad section of the sky.
Yeah, don't do that.
And don't accept regalia from strangers, especially if they just hand you parchments that say yay.
Good.
Good. On that note, bye everyone.